I want to say hello to everyone and welcome to tonight's broadcast. I've got a number of people saying hi already. I don't have a wingman or somebody helping me with questions quite yet, so if you can kind of hold off on your questions for about a half hour. I do have some questions that people have sent in to me from email that I got before the program. So I just want to let you know that. We have a lot we can cover tonight. A bunch. Oh, shoot. No, there's a problem too nearby. Failed to connect. Okay, forget that. All right, I've got too many devices here I'm trying to look for, but I am working on this. Here we go. And again, thank you all for joining tonight. I know it takes a few minutes for people to join us and to get their setup working, and so I don't like to get started on the very dot of 8 because people have to sign up, and I can see our numbers are going up for who are the viewers that we have. And so I already have some questions I can start with before Rinda, I think, is going to come and join me here in about a half an hour and help me with monitoring the questions, which should help. Also, if you write a question, put in capitals question and then write your question. Otherwise, it looks like it's just a part of the. It is just a part of the chat, and so it's nice if we can kind of set that apart. There are some things that I was hoping to talk about tonight, and maybe you might be interested in. Let me get those notes here. I had a couple of notes, and I've been working on my new video, which is Stop Defending Yourself and Start Differentiating Yourself. I'm getting more information and working on that information because I find a lot of people get caught up in defending themselves. And if you want to know if there's enmeshment, check and see when you're defending yourself. Because if you're defending yourself, then there's enmeshment. Because you don't have, the only time you need to defend yourself is when your attorney has you on the stand and he's asking you questions to defend yourself. Otherwise, you don't have to defend yourself. And I think I've told, I had many rules, and one of the rules is and again, if you would hold off your questions for about another 30 minutes, I'm going to miss your questions if you ask them right now. So you might hold off on those or ask them again in about 30 minutes. Otherwise, I can't write them down and talk to you at the same time. One of the rules for self-differentiation is I do not have to answer every question I'm asked. And I say, well, unless it's a judge or the policeman or, those kinds of things, then you're going to have to answer. But other than that, you don't have to answer any questions from anyone. In enmeshed families, there's an expectation that you will always have to answer the questions. Same way with husband and wife. You have to answer every question I have. Well, no, I don't have to. If you want to know something, I can integrate, I can evaluate that and see if that's something I want to share with you. But that's up to me to do that. And a part of a loving relationship is having respect and also having boundaries. And we struggle with that Many of us, in fact, I would say most of the people in the country struggle with that. That's probably one of the biggest problems we have is enmeshment. And that goes for religion, politics, relationships, marriages, families. Enmeshment occurs everywhere, and it really does drive the emotional content and then also the thinking content, because we do this feel think process where or we are unconsciously operating with our limbic system, and that's what's driving everything we do, say, feel, behave. And that's not a good, it's not a very mature way to do that, and it's not a very self-differentiated way. I was watching a movie, I think it was called The Great Wall, with Matt Damon, and it's got all these creatures that all attack the Great Wall of China, and the mother beast that is in charge of all these monsters, she, by telepathy or magnetic signals, sends out a signal to all of them, and they all attack or move a certain way by how she sends out the signal. And that's what happens in biology with bees and others. But this is a swarm of all these animals, and they just operate in that way. Well, that's no different than how we can function in a family as well. That the emotional system is that a magnetic force, and that driving force that we become a part of, and I kind of call it a super self, the family super self, that even goes beyond mom and dad. It's not, they're not planning it all. They're just a part of this whole super self, because I think it's about 5 generations in creation that it takes to generate this super self, and that we're a part of that. And so that bonds us together and enmeshes us, and we have a trance about it, just like these animals had a trance. They were just like in a trance, and if she would put up her signals, they would all run that way. She wanted to run that way, they ran that way, and they were all connected to her in a big super self. Now, in the movie, when you introduce a magnet, it messes up that process. And it messes up that. And by the way, I might tell folks you might want to hold off on your questions for another 20 minutes or something like that. Otherwise, I won't see them and won't be able to answer them, because I can't monitor all the chat as well as talk with you as well. So if you'll kind of hold those off for a little while, be sure to put capital letters question and then write your question. So when the magnet was introduced and it messed up the signals between the mother monster and all these other monsters, then she couldn't communicate with all them, and the super self stopped. And in fact, all the monsters just kind of died or laid down, because they weren't being guided by the queen beast. And so what we want to do is we want to introduce our own magnet into ourselves, well, where we are not hooked up to that super self and the emotional system. And one of the things that I was going to talk about tonight was process versus content, meaning we are in trance, or we are connected to that process, but we don't see the process, and we only communicate, or we will only communicate regarding content and not talk about or address the process. And in that way, we are connected to the queen or the super self of the family. And if we take on a magnet, it stops that process, and we're now not just a functionary in this family system. But that's true in relationships as well. I don't want to be in a trance with someone else, or with a spouse, or with a boss, or anyone. Um, I wanted to check and see, is the volume very low? Maybe you can let me know if the volume's too low. Someone had mentioned that. I didn't know if that might help with the volume. Maybe someone can. Volume is good here. Okay, so it looks like that might work. I just want to make sure I'm not too low. Volume good, a little. Okay. So we want to break that trance that we have. And even if you go and talk to your sister, let's say, or your brother, you go and talk to your brother or your sister, and they say, I just had an example today. What did she say? I know. One was about. Oh, yes. The sister said to her sister, who has a boyfriend who lives in another state, and they're kind of sort of boyfriend girlfriend. They've been together, but they're just kind of in a loose sort of kind of relationship. And her sister said, "Well, are you, I don't know, but I think you should consider, maybe your boyfriend might be with another female over there in that other state. Do you have worries about that?" And again, what does she do? But the sister who's being talked to feels upset and feels caught, doesn't want to talk about the boyfriend, and feels like she needs to defend herself and her boyfriend, which, by the way, the sister has never even met the boyfriend, doesn't even know anything about the boyfriend, but she's saying, well, hey, he might be over there cheating on you. And that just frustrated this person. And so she starts arguing with the sister. Why are you always so negative? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? It's so frustrating when you do that. And of course the sister is saying, well, I'm just, I was just asking, why do you have to be so sensitive? When in actuality, it's not so much that the person was sensitive. Well, no. It is actually true. The person was sensitive. The thing is, they were sensitive because of the process and the emotional dynamics between her and her sister. And so she was reactive to what her sister said. If we're not reactive, then we then can say to the sister, as I mentioned in the last live broadcast that we have, well, Mary, does it bother you to think my boyfriend in this other state might be dating somebody else or somebody I don't know about? Well, she would say, well, I think you should. Well, Mary, it doesn't bother me. And again, it's not something I've even thought of, because that's not what my boyfriend does. I know him. I know what he would do and what he wouldn't do. Been with him for a long time. Her sister doesn't know anything about it. She's just poking at her sister. And then the client that I was talking with was talking about, why does my sister do that? I wish she wouldn't do that. Jerry, tell me why. And I'm going, well, let's not look at the content. And if we're talking about process versus content, let's not look at the content. Let's look at the process. If I'm talking to you about your boyfriend, whom I know nothing about, and interjecting and intruding fears or concerns um, regarding your boyfriend and his potential cheating, um, if I'm doing that, how would that serve me? And again, I am pushing the sister's button, as one person said. I'm definitely pushing her button. But how does it serve me? As Mary, who's the one pushing the buttons. And she was thinking about that and thinking about that. And I said, well, who does this interaction and dynamic interaction focus on? Well, so Mary's the sister. Betty is the person whom was being challenged about her boyfriend. And then I see someone saying, I wonder if it's about control. I think there are two things. Number one, Betty and Mary. Mary, who's doing the challenging, it focuses on Betty, you're right, and doesn't focus on Mary. So it keeps the focus off of Mary. We don't have to look at my problems, my issues, my, how I interact, my relationships, my boyfriend, my anything. We're just focusing on you. And so now I'm saved from having to focus on me. And in fact, her whole family does that. It's a displacement, it's projection, they can't focus on themselves, so they're always picking at her. And then someone mentioned control. You're right. If I can do something in that way that keeps the focus off me and I focus on you, I'm staying in control. And I get to stay in control, and we don't have to we really don't have to focus on ourselves. And that's the main reason. We also look at how many folks were narcissistic in her family, which, again, her sister and her aunt and her cousin, and there were some other people that would have been, that are very narcissistic, and she had not seen them as being narcissistic, but they had no empathy. They just poke her and focus on her. They call her, she's, Betty is just so insensitive. Excuse me, so sensitive, not insensitive, just so sensitive. And it's very frustrating when you get caught in that dynamic. It is our job to detach from that process. So what happens is, as we know, Mary uses content that would trigger Betty, and much of this is done unconsciously, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. Because that's just the way they've always known how to communicate. So it's not like something new or some new manipulation. It's just the way they've always talked. I focus and poke you so I don't have to look at me. I've done that all my life. So Mary focuses on a weakness or a questionable part in Betty's life, right? Her boyfriend, who's kind of sort of off on kind of thing. That's a little bit of a weakness in some way. And then, so she will bait them, as we've said, and she will prod them. And then Betty has to decide, and often unconsciously will decide, to grab a hold of the rope. And now we do this tug of war in the relationship. And I'm telling Betty that she has an opportunity to not go for the bait and don't grab the rope and don't do the pulling back and forth. And also when you are told that you are so sensitive, you can always think, I'm not sure that I'm so sensitive. I just wonder how much you are insensitive. And that you wonder why everyone's upset, or I'm upset, when you do hurtful, bad, negative things. And so I'm not the oversensitive one. You're the undersensitive one. And so also learning I can not grab a hold of that rope and go, oh, well, Mary, does it bother you that my boyfriend might be having an affair? Well, yes, I wouldn't want him to have an affair on you. And again, uh, Mary, it doesn't bother me. It's not my reality. So I'm not going to match you in your concern about my boyfriend. Nor am I going to get mad at you because you are thinking something irrational. It's irrational. And that's it's not even rational. And she's talking like it is rational. Again, she doesn't know the boyfriend, she doesn't know anything about the boyfriend. Well, I've been joined by Rendon. I'm so glad she's helping us out tonight, or helping me out. And maybe she can take down some questions for me. And I have a few questions here that I'll be addressing. But I wanted to talk about process versus content a little bit. And again, what Betty was doing was focusing on the content. I have to respond to Mary and her charge that my boyfriend could be having an affair in another state. That's focusing on the content. Focusing on the process of what's going on and zooming out would be to look at, hey, this is not my fight. This is my sister's craziness. She doesn't even know my boyfriend. I'm not even worried about this issue. And also, she's not bringing it up for altruistic reasons. She's not bringing it up because she cares. She's bringing it up because it's a weakness of mine, because my boyfriend and I are kind of iffy. And so she's pushing that little sore spot. And so I want to look at someone pushing the sore spot and staying out of the tug of war and not being reactive, rather than focusing on, I need to argue with her and get her to believe that, and get her convinced that my boyfriend will not be having an affair. Why am I? No, I want to give up on that. I give up. If you want to think he's having an affair, go right ahead, Mary, and think he's having an affair. That's up to you. I'll have my reality, you have yours. And that way we begin to disconnect from the family trance and that mother monster, that mother beast that has the little antenna that goes zzz. Everybody needs to do what I say they should do. Okay. So that's a little bit about process versus content. We now have some questions, and in fact, I might want to do the email questions. There are a couple in there first. A fan, I don't know if I want, I mean, they sent me the email. I don't know if they would mind. This is Cecilia. Not sure if you have room for more questions today. But my dealings with my 19-year-old daughter, the thing that stresses me out the most, and when to push for training, life skills, social skills, morals, and when do you lower your expectation for the child and just live with the way she is? I guess I'm wondering, after all your years of working with numerous people with personality complications, do you have a good sense of when to push for change in an individual and when not to waste your energy, because it will only end in frustration? Do you have any signs or clues that you read? I have a daughter whom I've adopted as a teenager. She comes from a background environment and genes with the dysfunctional parents. which in fact may be the case. It may have come from a bad home or a dysfunctional family or genes that are not so great. Now, if you're talking about a 19-year-old, we're not talking about a child. We're talking about an adult. I definitely think lowering your expectations is a good thing to do. She's 19. I also believe that there may be some of the way she is the way she's going to be. And I'm always concerned about pushing for change, especially when you're talking about adults. Pushing for change usually is problematic. When someone's 19, unless they are incapacitated, I think it's time for the universe to parent them and for them to live with their choices and their lack of self-care. If the daughter's not willing to get help, get evaluated, get some therapy, coaching, if she's not willing to do that, then hey, the law doesn't say you can make her do it. She can say no, 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 no. A kid cannot legally say no. That's incorrigibility. An adult can say no, I don't want to do this. And then if we're pushing for change, then we're trying to get her to be someone that she's not ready or doesn't want to be yet. You might watch a video I have called Letting Everyone Around You Grow Up. And you might take a look at that video on my YouTube channel, Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. Or if you have a question, you can email me at jerrywise5@gmail.com. I always like parents to encourage them to say, if your child is not launching well into adulthood or is problematic or narcissistic, hey, you're going to have to live with the consequences of the universe. Number one, if the state needs to take care of you, then the state can take care of you. But we'll be happy to support you with therapy as long as you might need that. That I don't mind helping you as a parent. But I can't make you be somebody I want you to be. I wish I could. Well, Cecilia, I hope that gives you a few things to think about. I've got another question came in from Mary, not the Mary in the story, but this Mary from email. I am an adult child of an alcoholic, and my older sister says a lot of mean, invalidating things to me. Even though I'm an adult, it hurts me. She recently said to me, "You never feel good. You might as well get a gun and shoot yourself." This is hurtful. How do you not focus on what was said in this case? Cognitively, I don't think she knows how to offer any kind of support or had the capacity to do so. It still hurts, and I do have to overcome it. Any suggestions? Well, Mary, I think you've somewhat identified part of the problem. And one way for her comments and reactions and her words can hurt less if you continue to realize more intensely and agree and accept. I don't think she knows how to offer any kind of support or even has the capacity to do so. If someone didn't have the capacity, for example, I remember having a schizophrenic patient that I was working with inpatient. He was on a locked unit because he had stopped taking his medication and he was smoking weed, and that was just causing a great mess. He was actually schizophrenic and bipolar, and it was a great mess. And that he believed he was a member of the German royal family, at least in his delusion, in his psychosis. And I knew that. And that he felt that I was more of a peon in this situation when I went in to speak with him. And I was the family therapist for a psychiatric practice. And he thought I was a peon, and and I really wasn't worthy to be talked to. Now, why didn't that hurt me when he said that to me? It was mean. It was not caring. It, because I don't think he knows how to offer any kind of support, nor did he have the capacity to do so. He's schizophrenic. And he was not taking his medications, and so he's going to say crazy things. And he's going to say crazy things about me, just as your sister might say crazy things about you. And so when you said, she says invalidating things, and what we tend to do is give our power away over to those invalidators, over to your older sister, especially if we'd been in ACOA, we give our power over to them. I wasn't going to give my power over to the schizophrenic because I knew he's schizophrenic. He can call me an ugly, stupid sloth if he wants. I don't care. It's not going to matter because he's in an altered state. Well, your sister is in an altered state too. So altered that she could tell you, you never feel good, you might as well get a gun and shoot yourself. That's insane. And it's not in touch with relational reality. Now, you say it's hurtful. Well, it's only hurtful because you allow it to be hurtful and you give your power away to your sister. And what I would do with a client is say, so you're not ready to not accept, you are not ready to stop giving your power away to your sister. Can you own that and accept yourself and continue to repeat that mantra till the point where you go, wait a minute, I am ready to do that. And just keep saying, I'm not ready to stop giving up my power to my sister. I'm not ready to stop giving up my power to my sister. And I'm not ready to stop feeling hurt when she says insane things. And if we work through that acceptance, we then start to gain ourselves again. Because we let it hurt, when actually it's ridiculous. It's actually silly. Now, what's interesting is I don't know what her sister, I don't know what your sister gets out of saying that to you. And I would, if I were working with you, I'd try to find out what's the process and why would your sister benefit from saying that. And the other thing is, if somebody says to me, Jerry, you never feel good, might as well get a gun and shoot yourself, I would say, I have no idea what you're talking about. That makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. It makes no sense to me. Even if I don't feel good often, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, and we've said this in the past, it's like calling me a Coca-Cola. I think for those of you who have joined in the past, being that we want to think about it, somebody saying, I just want to tell you you're a Coca-Cola. Well, how upset can I get? It's ludicrous. And I want to hear that statement from your sister, like her saying, you're a Coca-Cola. And you're not. And it's like, I don't even know how to integrate that. You're not a Coca-Cola. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to go get a gun and shoot myself. I don't care if you want me to, because if you want me to, it's still insane. It's what you're saying is ridiculous. It's nutty. It's this is from, I hope that helps some, Mary. Dear Jerry, it was difficult to think of a question regarding this topic as I'm trying to cope with triggers and overwhelming, unresolved, and sometimes ambivalent emotions related to the past as an ACOA with grandfather, father, and brother. The topic reminds me of saying actions speak louder than words. And I think so many times we are used to focusing on the words and not what the process is, what is happening, or what's going on, what's afoot, what's being done. Instead, we focus on what they're saying like it makes sense. Well, so many times families communicate. If you listen to them communicate, you go, that didn't make a bit of sense, because they're just going through the motions of being a super self, and they're just talking out of the super self. The question is, please, when and how do we know to turn the focus back to self-care rather than what is being said or done in an enmeshed toxic situation? What is the best recovery or self-differentiation? When and how do we know to turn the focus back to self-care? Because it is always time to focus on self-care. That's the only person you are put on this earth to manage is you. You are not put on this earth to manage someone else. Now, granted, if you're a parent, you do have to take care of children. No doubt about that. That's an obligation. But you have to take care of self. You have to do self-care. And that in enmeshed toxic situations, the last thing you want to do is focus on the content, because it's all jibberty jabber, it's all silliness, it's irrational, and so that's the last thing you want to do. It's like walking into an alcoholic family where there's an alcoholic and everybody in the whole family is traumatized, and thinking they're going to all communicate well. No, it's going to be a cluster F, if you know what I mean, in terms of communication. But somehow people don't realize that's what they should expect. And if you have, grandfather, father, brother, alcoholic, do not take them seriously. Do not take it in. And that's where I've talked so many times about observing, not absorbing. Stop absorbing, just like with Mary and her, well, I think you should get a gun and shoot yourself. Why would I want to absorb that? That's absolutely insane. That's like absorbing that I'm a Coca-Cola. What am I going to do with that? So, we don't want to absorb. We want to observe what's going on. So, we always go back to self-care. If you're not ready to go back to self-care, Stephanie, if you're not ready to go back to self-care, then understand the downsides of being ready. If you were always ready to do self-care, what would be the downsides of that in your interaction with your family? What keeps you from being ready to do that? And so we want to look at the downsides of doing something good for ourselves, because oftentimes there are. Let's see here. Let me take a look here. I have one from Sajad, I'm not sure. Do narcissists change? Well, they can change from minute to minute, but if you mean can they change their narcissism, well, it depends on where they are on the spectrum. It depends on where they are on the continuum. If there are 2 on the continuum, they have much more chance of changing. If there are 9 or 10 on the continuum of narcissism, they're going to have no interest whatever in changing. It won't even come to their mind. It won't even be an issue because it's not, doesn't matter. They don't care. There's no problem. Let me see. Okay. Jackie asked, how do we overcome the anger when we are being gaslighted by family and then basically put in a crazy box? Well, the first thing we want to do is accept the fact that narcissists gaslight, and families who are narcissists will gaslight. And why are you taking it so seriously? Now, again, if you're 10 years old and you're in a family of narcissists, that's different. If you're an adult, I don't want to be, defined by, people can gaslight me all the time, and I go, okay. If you say that the light, just like in the gaslighting movie, that the lights are up as high as they were yesterday, the gas lights are up as high as they were yesterday, and I know they're not, then I'm not going to be angry about that. I just know that's the nature of my crazy family. That's what they do. And so oftentimes when we don't accept our family, and I don't mean be best friends to narcissists, I mean accept that's who they are, then we'll feel more angry about what they do. When really, this is what narcissists do. They gaslight. And they will try to put you in a crazy box. And somebody can put me in a crazy box all day long. I don't care. If it bothers them, that's okay. But it doesn't bother me. I know I'm not crazy, and I know you just gaslighted. So what is there more to say? And why would I want to waste anger on that? Anger is about, I want this to change. I want them to change. Why are they doing this? I'm mad. You're just yelling into nothingness. And that's usually, why do my family keep doing that? And people will ask me, why does my family keep doing that? Well, I can give you reasons, or maybe some reasons, or even some psychological reasons. But the question is, it really doesn't matter. What matters is whether you let them take your power from you and whether you absorb what they are saying with regard to the gaslighting, or the belief that you should be in the crazy box. If somebody says, well, Jerry, here's being in the crazy box. You're just too sensitive. And I've been told that before. You're just too sensitive, which means, Jerry, you're crazy. It's nobody else that's doing anything wrong. It's just you. Just don't forget that. You're just too sensitive. And I go, well, I might be too sensitive, but that doesn't mean what has happened is right. In fact, I detach my sensitivity from the issue. I'm going to detach the issue. I can be sensitive. I can even be too sensitive. But if somebody's wrong, they're still wrong, whether I'm oversensitive or not. And you haven't convinced me that it's not wrong, so maybe I am too sensitive. So what? But what you just did, I didn't like and I don't appreciate, and it was wrong. Now, you can call it whatever you want. But there again, they're calling you a Coca-Cola again. Jerry, you're just a Coca-Cola. And that's how I hear it. It goes in my ears, it goes Coca-Cola, and I go, I don't know what a Coca-Cola is. And also, how would they feel if you said, but your comments were horribly insensitive? They don't want to hear that. They're not interested in hearing that. because the process is we need to control you, we need to manipulate you, and we need to control you. Well, you don't get to control my insides. You just don't get to do that. I'm going to control my insides, not the super self of the family, not the queen monster who's sending out all the marching orders for everybody. That's not who's going to control me. I have my own process that I can take care of, thank you, and that I will manage that. I hope that helps. How do you get stronger in catching the process bait instead of content? Daria, that's actually a very good question. We could do a whole night's broadcast on that question alone. Let me see if I can share some things about that. Learning systems thinking and thinking regarding systems is one way to begin to catch the process versus the content. I would suggest reading Harriet Lerner books. I would suggest reading Roberta Gilbert books, Jenny Brown's book, Growing Yourself Up, Andrea Schara, Schara, her book, The Mindful Compass, or Your Mindful Compass. I would begin to take a look at that and look at those books, because those books will begin to change your paradigm and the way you think. And that will begin to inform your process about what's going on with other people. And that begins to grow you up, is what it does. And it's not an easy work, because we are not trained as kids to look at the process. Let me give you an example. When a child who's young and doesn't know any better sees his aunt come, and she's there for Christmas or whatever, or Easter, we'll have Easter, and the aunt's very overweight, and the child says, "Mommy, Aunt Susie is fat." Now, what does mom say? What happens? Number one, you could get spanked, you could get slapped, you could be explained, don't say that, that was rude, you need to go apologize to Aunt so-and-so. There could be any number of responses. But the one thing we learn is, don't say what you think. And don't observe what's going on. Just do what I'm telling you. Because I think there's a way you can teach a child to be respectful, but still be observant to the process, and also be respectful and caring and kind. But oftentimes we don't. And so a child is not supposed to talk about the process. A child or a student or someone young should only talk about the content. You can't make it about what's going on. And so we learn to not see what's going on, but just say what we're supposed to say and stay focused on the content. There are other ways we learn that as well, but we don't look at the process. That's not, there's something unkind about that when you do that. Just like if a friend keeps being late. Now, I don't interpret, as a healthcare professional or as a coach, I don't interpret their behavior. If I have a friend and I had a friend who's late, he'd be 30 minutes late, he could be 40 minutes late, and I'm just sitting there. Like, what? I mean, this is nuts. And I'm going, I don't like this at all. I'm busy. We're going to go out. We're going to do this. And he doesn't even text or say I'm going to be late. And then I'm sitting out there and he says, I'm just getting out of the shower. Well, I'm already sitting out here and you're just not getting out of the shower. We said we were going to meet at this time. And so now I can yell at him. I can be mad at him. I can shame him. I can guilt him. I can do any number of things. I don't think that's the best thing to do. I certainly would want to talk to him and say, hey, this doesn't work for me. And it's been happening 2 or 3 times, and I don't appreciate it. It doesn't work. And I'm not sure why it happens. I'm not going to try to figure it out for you. But I think what I need to do is I'm going to take care of myself. And what we're going to do from now on is we're going to meet at the location together, but I'm not going to take you. I'm not going to pick you up. And in fact, I'm going to have you, when you get to the restaurant, you call me and let me know that you're there. And then I will come. And I'll probably only be 5-10 minutes away, no matter where. And so it's not going to be long, and I'll be there. But I think I need to do that. And so now I'm setting boundaries, making plans to take care of myself so I don't have to be mad, angry, give my power away, feel abused or used. And I've communicated to him how I feel, and we'll go from there. And if he doesn't want to do that or can't, then he doesn't want to do that or can't. Then I have to accept that about my friend, and that's okay. And I have to do the grief and the grief work or whatever and let him go. But it's not that I want to, but I don't think being disrespected in that way. And again, I think, being early is about anxiety, being late is about anger, but it also can have other factors too. But he and I had to have a talk about that. And I said, when you get there, you call me, I'll come. But I'm not going to waste 30, 40 minutes just doing nothing, thinking you're coming out. Soren writes, I recently dropped the rope with my schizophrenic brother. He tried to process his emotions last night. I told him that I feel trapped when he does this. He stopped. Why do I feel guilty? I think that's a very good question, Soren. Why do you feel guilty? Are you doing something wrong? If you're not doing something wrong, then I'm not sure why you should feel guilty. So we can kind of set that aside, that I shouldn't be feeling guilty. So now why am I feeling guilty? So why am I feeling guilty? Oftentimes then that kicks it over in my mind to a systems response. The guilt is there for me to stay in the role I am supposed to play in the family or with your brother, or the guilt is there for you to continue to play that role with your brother, whatever it is, that you're supposed to feel trapped and and all of that. Now again, with a schizophrenic brother, I realize it can be very difficult. You also can set boundaries, even with the schizophrenic, in saying, hey, bro, I'll be happy to talk with you for 15 minutes, but that's all I've got. And that's all I'm going to... But you can process your feelings if you want. But that I care about you. But there was a quote I put up on my Facebook page, Jerry Wise Relationship Systems, which is on Facebook. I also have a Instagram page as well. And the Facebook page I put up, I'm willing to help, but I'm not willing to take over. And so I don't want to take over when it comes to someone who is mentally ill, even if it's a family member. I'm not, able to do that. I don't want to do that. I can choose not to do that. And reassure my brother that I do care about him. But again, your brother may have a distorted thinking about it, which he might because of his illness. In terms of your guilt, if I waved a magic wand, Soren, and you felt no guilt at all, what would be the downside? What would be the downsides of that? What would be problematic? What would you do that would be bad if I took away that guilt and it's now no longer there? You can't even feel it, and you won't have guilt. Oftentimes we fear what we might do, which is really what we'd like to do, but we don't because our guilt keeps us in a cage. And so we want to, if we were freed from the cage, what would we do? I hope that helps, Soren. I don't. Ooh, well, now we've got an interesting Pearly Q, kind of a spiritual psychological question. By the way, there's a great book that, and I think you all may know, I don't know, I like Murray Bowen, Family Systems, and that there's a new book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And basically, it's you cannot be spiritually mature without being emotionally mature. And I would recommend that book to anyone. It's a great book about spirituality and emotional health. Because this question from Pearly Q is, how do we honor a narcissistic parent? That's, and a lot of people struggle with that. Well, it depends on what you mean by honor, and what does honor mean, and how do we interpret an Iron Age notion about parents and family in today's understanding. There was no understanding at the time of the writing of the Ten Commandments. There was no understanding of narcissism whatsoever. That's a very, very modern notion. There was not even an understanding of mental illness or personality disorder. Or it would be like, well, what do the Ten Commandments have to do with diabetes? Well, I don't know. Diabetes wasn't even a concept at that time. Now, they may have called it something else because there was, I'm sure, diabetes, but they didn't know the process or anything about that. And I think when I think about honoring a parent, I think about me respecting them in a way in which I respect myself and respect them as an adult. That's what I think about honoring them. Honoring them, I don't believe means you do whatever they say, you answer any question they ask, you live a life according to what they want, you always make them happy, whether you're happy or not. I don't think that's what honoring your father and mother is. I will never not be grateful that my parents had me. That didn't mean my parents always did well, and nor did well as parents, but they did have me, and that I'm grateful for. I would not choose to treat them badly, but I'm just fine having boundaries, asking for things, and if they couldn't do it, then I need to have more space. that's not, well, what happens to, and I think when people talk about, well, I need to honor my father and the father and your mother, what about the verse that says, don't, what is the, don't, I would cause your children to be, oh, jeez, I can't, but maybe some of you can think of it. Provoke your children. Yes, thank you. What do we do with the provoking of the children? And don't narcissists provoke the children? So they're breaking that. So what do I do about honoring father and mother? I want to treat them with respect. I want to treat them with dignity. But that doesn't mean they get to provoke me, nor do they get to operate with me in an enmeshed way. Honoring is not about enmeshing, at least in my, don't drive your children to resentment. That's another way of, right. So what do we do with don't drive your children to resentment part? Isn't that what narcissists do? And I think it's what narcissists do. Don't provoke your children to anger or frustration. How many parents do that? But yet, we need to honor our father and mother. Well, there's a lot of conflicting things in here. So what I think of is what is spiritual growth, spiritual maturity, treating... Narcissistic parents are creation made by God. They're just not well. No different than I am a creation of God, but I have diabetes. Well, I just have it. But I am a creation of God. Well, you can have diabetes of the mind and diabetes of the personality. Narcissistic personality, you can have mood disorders, you can have all kinds of anxiety disorders, schizophrenia. Your brain can be as messed up as any other organ in the body. And in fact, many times it is. We don't have perfect brains. We may learn more in this decades in the future. So I hope that helps a little Pearly Q about honoring mom and dad. So Tia asked an interesting, should we stay in, there's a couple over here. Should we stay in relationship or in relations with liars? Well, I don't know how much the relationship is going to grow if you have something with a liar. And it's what I like, and here's another thing. A lot of times folks will ask questions about, should I cut off from, should I go no contact from, should I stop having a friendship with, instead of what should I do to stop the relationship, how about if I behave in such a mature, responsible way that they don't want to be in the relationship? And I like to think of it that way. So if I have a friend who is a liar, they're not going to want to be in a relationship with me because I'm going to be talking about the lying, and they won't want that. So I'll let them decide what they want to do about the relationship rather than me deciding I'm going to book. I'll let them book by being self-differentiated. And I like being self-differentiated. I said, well, hey, Susie, I found out you lied to me the other day. No, you didn't? Well, I know from a good source that you did. And I didn't appreciate that, and I don't appreciate that. And if you continue to do it, I will continue to confront you about it. Now, it won't be long. Mary won't be wanting to hang out. Mary will be finding other friends. That's her choice. I just self-differentiated her out of the relationship. And she can do with that what she wants, rather than I need to stop messing with her. And sometimes we do need to stop messing with someone if they're toxic, I understand that. But I sure like to differentiate to end the relationship, not end it because I can't handle myself in the relationship. I can handle myself. Let me take just a short break. Rind is here, and she has Rinspire Life Coaching I think they did a whole program the last time on. I listened to that whole program about Rinspire that they had in the last live broadcast. Rinspire Life Coaching online. My website is www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. Facebook, same name. Instagram. And my YouTube channel is also Jerry Wise Relationship Systems. Got 150, 60 videos on there. I've got a few more I'm going to be adding. It's been busy and difficult to get videos done because it takes some work to do it, and I like to think through them and try to make it as good a content as I can, and with the limited time that I have. I got a lot of calls today. People were so kind and calling and saying how much they had appreciated my videos, and were saying that, hey, after 5 years of therapy, they said I learned more from your videos than I ever learned when I was in therapy. I met with one person today, and they said that they probably had 3 different therapists, and for quite a while, but learned more in 1 hour and understood their situation in 1 hour than they ever got, because the therapist might just say, okay, well, I just think you're depressed or you're anxious, or that's and you just need to be doing this, and they really don't dig into the family systems way of thinking and helping a client that way. And it doesn't mean I'm a genius. If anything, I stand on the shoulders of a lot of people who were very smart and geniuses, not me. But I like to have taken away from them many good things that they taught me over time. I do remember having the honor of meeting Murray Bowen back in the 80s. And he was kind of the grandfather of family therapy. And then I got to meet some people who are very systems oriented and actually pretty much saved my life. So I know what other people feel like, because I had no way to know the lay of the land or how to navigate it, where to go. I had no idea. Well, we have several questions here. And by the way, you can contact me via email or my phone number. That's on any of my videos on YouTube. If you would like to work with me, I would work with you. I do have a few spots open for new clients. Okay. Let's see. This one is from Northern Lights. Should you try to convince the flying monkeys, who are clearly codependent, or being used, I think is another way of, that they are wrong? Has it ever worked for anyone? Well, I never say always or never. I'm sure it has worked sometime. I tend to not try to convince people of things. You are all watching because you choose to. I'm not trying to convince you. There's certainly some persuasive things that I'd like to share with you, and I'd like to be persuasive, but if I have to convince you, we're probably not at a good state in the relationship. Now, if a flying monkey comes to me, there's nothing wrong with pointing out what I see, feel, hear, and believe. So there's nothing wrong with saying that when a flying monkey comes to me, I can say, for example, a flying monkey would come and say, well, my mom would kind of, or she might say, um, the Jerry, have you called your brother lately? What? And I said, well, or when was the last time you talked to your brother? Mom, why do you ask? Well, I just wondered if you've connected with your brother. And so Mom would have this triangle with my brother and I and her, and she would want to make sure I had contacted my brother because either she felt bad about it or she thought it should be better or whatever she thought. And so she was kind of being a flying monkey for that process. Because you can be a flying monkey for a process or for a person or a narcissist. Because a triangle kind of has a little flying monkey element to it. And I would say to her, Mom, does it bother you whether I've contacted Jim or not? Well, yeah. And again, what do we say? It doesn't bother me. And so I don't know why you're asking me about something that has to do with Jim and I, my brother and I. I don't know why you're asking about that. I don't know your concern. I don't know. Well, I just love you two and I want you two to get along. I know you want us to get along. I'm not sure we do. What? Well, that's your brother. What do you mean you don't want to get along? I didn't say I didn't want to get along. What I'm saying is we haven't gotten along all that well. That's just kind of the way we are for whatever reasons. Maybe I could give some. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't know. But, it doesn't have to be your worry, Mom. It's not your worry. And so I wouldn't worry about it. If someone comes to you and they're a flying monkey saying, hey, Jerry, your uncle told me that he was mad at you because of what you said last Sunday at the family gathering. And that he doesn't know why you won't take his advice and do what you should do. Really? Well, you might want to have my uncle contact me directly. And I'm not sure who has commissioned you to send me this information. I haven't asked you for it. Did my uncle want you to come and talk to me about it? Because I'm just not sure. And in the psychological parlance, this is a flying monkey. You're being a flying monkey. And I really don't, I don't want to do what my uncle wants me to do because I don't choose to, and he's not happy with it. And he sent you to turn up the Bunsen burner, to turn up the fire. Well, I'm not gonna respond to the fire. You can turn it up all you want, but I'm just going to move the Bunsen burner away from the beaker that's boiling the water. I'm just going to set it over here. I'm not going to do what my uncle says. Northern Lights, I hope that helps some. Here's from Sajad. My narcissistic dad told me you don't owe us anything. He also said my list of boundaries accepted. Rest in peace. Is he accepting his wrong? That would be very hard to tell. If he's a narcissist, if a true narcissist, I can't imagine he'd be accepting his wrong. That would have to be a move. He's going to be charming as a move to manipulate, or love bombing, or accepting, or over acceptance. But if he's a true narcissist, if he's not, if he's a lower end narcissist on that end, I don't know. He may have some feeling that he doesn't want the argument anymore. But I'm not sure, since I don't know the story of the family very well. If I knew more of the story, I might be able to either predict or guess what it might be. Because you can look at family dynamics and look at the whole and zoom out and get an idea of what someone's motives might be. Do some people, this is Jackie, do some people not realize that they are being the flying monkey? Yeah, a flying monkey can be unconscious. It certainly can be unconscious, and they may not be aware they're doing it. Many of them don't. They're operating out of a super self, is what they're doing. They're operating out of a super self that just tells them this is what the queen monster is going neat, neat, and the flying monkeys go out, and they're just talking, but they're just being their spinal column and their emotional system is being run by somebody else. They're just out here as a robot. They don't know. They think they're doing something good or being appropriate or whatever, and they're not. And they oftentimes don't know that's what they're doing. They think it's the right thing to do. Well, I know your uncle wants the best for you, Jerry, so I'm here to tell you that maybe you should listen to your Uncle more, and maybe you should do what he says. See, they don't see themselves as being a flying monkey. They think they're being reasonable. Well, their content seems reasonable. Excuse me. The content seems reasonable. The process is what's not reasonable and not healthy and not mature. There was another question. And this was from Amanda. How do you begin discussion about what needs you have from a spouse and their needs when it's hard to get through to them? And say the acknowledgement of their addiction or addictive behavior. And I think and that can be true for a narcissist. In fact, addiction has narcissism as one of its traits. That doesn't mean everybody who is addicted is a narcissist. It just means addiction has a narcissistic side. Once the addiction, they're in recovery, the narcissistic side should fade away, unless you are a true narcissist. And so, with someone who's in addiction, then we're talking about their denial, because if they don't acknowledge their own behaviors, then they're in denial. It's very difficult to make somebody not be in denial. And how do you begin the discussion? You just begin the discussion. You just start talking and share that. What I would recommend is using Al-Anon so that you focus on you and not your husband, because you don't want to focus on the addict or the alcoholic, because you'll just go crazy in the process. If they're not ready to identify their needs, there's no way you can make them identify their needs. What I like to do is, when someone's in denial, someone's not aware of their needs, someone's oblivious, someone doesn't have insight. And by the way, in the chemical dependency world, we call it denial. In the psychiatric mental health world, it's called lack of insight. I then stop talking, and I start thinking, how can I show them what's important? And that means me focusing on me getting healthier, me going to meetings, and me also expressing how I feel about things. I don't know if he's ready to express how he feels, but I know I'm ready to express how I feel. Hey, I need to talk with you. Can I tell you how this is affecting me? No, I don't want to know. Okay, well, then I need to go to another meeting and work the 12-step process so that when I have an addictive spouse, I don't have addiction to them. I want to break that addiction to them. And that's often what happens as a co-dependent. And Al-Anon can be helpful for those things. Let's see here. Acceptance in the group. It's an interesting one. Several of these questions have. Okay. Would require a long time to answer, and we've got about 6-7 minutes left. And I, even if we had the whole night, some of these questions you could go all night with, and would be an entire coaching session, or Strato Harry 2. Is that what it is? I'm not sure. Do you think someone can heal completely from abandonment issues, or is it a lifelong struggle? Well, that's I don't even know if my pay grade, I can answer that question. I can only talk about the dynamics of abandonment. I only know about my own experience of abandonment and recovery. So I don't think there's any research that says abandonment issues are never recoverable, or that says you can never recover from abandonment issues. There's no research that is definitive about that. Any more than saying, can you recover from depression? Some people do, some people don't. Some people have parts of depression their whole life, but they manage it in such a way that they can live a satisfying and fulfilling life. Other people can seemingly maybe get on medication, maybe get off medication, and then not have depression again. So, we're all individuals, and we're all people and human. I think when I think about abandonment, that certainly abandonment is a deep issue, and it is a deep wound. And I think that we come out of denial about our abandonment issues. Second of all, we learn about abandonment issues and how they function. Thirdly, we work on our family of origins issues regarding abandonment and when our abandonment occurred, and doing the grief work, the acceptance, of self-acceptance, the healing from the hurt and abandonment that we have. And then we work on that self-differentiation where we become our true selves. I can only testify to my experience because there's no research that answers that question. In my experience, I found a considerable reduction in abandonment issues. Whether 100% are perfect, who knows? Maybe not. But a considerable amount of healing when I worked on self-differentiation and worked on reducing self-abandonment, which is a part of self-differentiation. And when I did those two things, I found that abandonment was much of a smaller problem, much smaller, and I was being triggered far less. And then it would take quite a bit for me to be triggered. I mean, quite a bit. And then I would only be triggered for a short time, and then go back to a more normal state. So I'm just sharing my experience. Maybe some people can never and just need to manage their abandonment. Maybe some people can get to a place where they really don't get triggered in that way. And but I think there's a considerable amount of healing that can be done with not abandoning yourself and working on self differentiation. Those two things I can think really can make a difference with regard to abandonment issues. And I hope that's a help to you. Well, I had some other things I was going to talk about. I was hoping to talk about borrowing objectivity. Maybe we can do that the next time. And then I was going to talk about anything that is hysterical is historical. Meaning, and I don't mean hysterical as in funny, I mean hysterical as in reactivity. Anything that is hysterical is historical. And I was wanting to talk about that tonight. We can do that at another broadcast. Maybe I should do a video on those because that can help us. That can help us to have greater neutrality and greater stability emotionally. Because if we reduce the limbic system back there triggering these emotional responses, then we can have greater peace and tranquility, and we are not as easily knocked off our perch or knocked off our center. I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. I hope you'll follow me on my YouTube channel. Follow Family Tree Brand Life Coaches channel. Follow Renspire channel. Now, you have a Renspire YouTube channel.
It's at Renspire.
At Renspire. Is it called? Renspire?
It's at Renspire. That's how you get to it.
To the YouTube channel?
Yeah, you just type in at Renspire.
At Renspire is how you get to Rinda's
But just look up
YouTube
Renspire,
channel.
Yeah, Renspire Life Coaching.
And Renspire Life Coaching. Jerry Wise Relationship Systems is my YouTube channel. I think you'll enjoy those. And I just can't tell you how much I enjoy answering your questions. You guys are great folks to follow and to be so patient to listen to me for an hour and a half. Jaw on. And it's been a long day for me, but I was kind of it was interesting to get to come and talk tonight, even though I had a busy schedule today. But I was looking forward to talking with you, sharing with you, and I hope you'll continue to support what I want to do in terms of getting the self-differentiation message out. And I hope you will retweet, resend, and share videos with other people. I think I've gotten up to just over 26,000, maybe 26,200 subscribers on my YouTube channel. I really like to make that grow because I want people to have a healthy sense of self. And I would like to change the world in some small way. I know I can't change the whole world. If I can change a few people, that would be phenomenal. And I think it's been incredible that I could even change myself, quite honestly, because there was a time I thought there's no way I could. And Family Systems and Murray Bowen was a help for me to live a different life. So thank you very much for joining us, and I wish you the very best. And we will talk again in another few weeks and do a live broadcast. Thanks again.